2023 was an incredible year for gaming. I feel like I don't even need to say that. And since 2024 doesn't really have much to get excited about, let's look back on 2023's releases to reminisce on when good games came out. Like... Oh, yeah. We saw so many incredible games come out. Sequels we've been waiting years for, ports and remasters dreams were made of, and even a bunch of garbage. Going month by month, I want to look at most of the notable releases, whether I played them or not. Of course, I'm one person with a not-so-infinite wallet, so I was unable to pick up every game this year, and there were other games that you couldn't pay me to buy, so I haven't experienced everything, but I played demos where I could, and everything else, I just want to look at mostly objectively, with a bit of unjustified subjectivity. And going back to the whole I am one person thing, I also can't talk about every piece of news from the last year, so I'm more so picking and choosing from the things I want to talk about the most, because I'm selfish. Well, with all that out of the way, let's dive back into 2023, the best place I know where. January had a handful of solid releases, even though it didn't really feel like it. Now, as a Nintendo fan, you may expect me to have something to say about Nintendo's first game of the year, Fire Emblem Engage.
I do have something to say about it. I didn't play it.
Yeah, I'm not into Fire Emblem, not yet at least. I'd like to give the series a fair shot, but I am not spending $60 to do so. The other notable new title from January was definitely the Xbox exclusive Hi-Fi Rush, which came out of nowhere as it was announced and released on the same day, and man does it look good. It's coming to PS5 in the last few months, but I still haven't played it yet, but I really want to. It looks like a throwback to 6th generation game, just the art style, gameplay, atmosphere. It looks like it comes from the golden age of the original Xbox and PS2. From what I can tell, it's also a rhythm game, which is also really interesting. It just looks like a quality game that I would love to play. And Hi-Fi Rush was pretty damn big, so much so it took away a lot of attention from Forspoken, which seems like a good thing. So I gave the demo a go, and it was just so goddamn boring. The combat felt so brainless, but not in the fun way. I can get behind a good old beat 'em up where you just mindlessly tear through enemies, but this just... ugh. Nothing about it felt fun or interesting. The world felt like a super generic, dull medieval fantasy world, and the combat just felt like I was mindlessly pressing R2 in a really unsatisfying way. This game had a pretty negative reception, and while I only played the demo, I didn't think it was that bad, more so just pretty nothing. Nothing remarkable, and will live on as another game on the PlayStation Store. The other big release from January was Dead Space, a remake of the Xbox 360 original. I think it's very interesting that we are now living in an era where we're starting to see full remakes of PS3 and Xbox 360 games, but I'm not against it because Dead Space looks excellent. I haven't played the original or this remake, but I'm definitely down to pick this up in the future because it looks like a great space horror game. So, with all of that, what did I play in January?
What do you think? Old ass shit.
GoldenEye 007 made its way to Nintendo Switch Online and Xbox Game Pass. One of the most beloved Nintendo 64 games, this game was so difficult to re-release due to all of its licenses. You see, it's a Nintendo 64 game, but it was developed by Rare, who was bought out by Xbox, and of course it's a licensed James Bond game, so there are 3 companies with a hand in this pie, and yet they worked together to release this game on both Nintendo Switch Online and Xbox Game Pass, which is legendary. Finally, people like me can experience this beloved classic. It's not that great. I'm kidding, of course. I love GoldenEye 007, and this is a very nice release of it. The controls at first were pretty awful because, keep in mind, it was developed for this. But after messing around with both the in-game and system-wide control settings, you can get a dual stick scheme that feels shockingly good. And I played through this game with this scheme, and I loved it. I wouldn't say it's an incredible game. The reason it's so beloved is its multiplayer, and back on the Nintendo 64, this was a great game, but even these days I really enjoyed it. But there are many who couldn't really get behind it, and I definitely get why. It's aged, and I'd even say it's a bit overrated, but I also think it's a ton of fun, and definitely one of my favorite Nintendo 64 games. And it was awesome to finally see it re-released. Also, this was the first Nintendo Switch Online game with widescreen support, and it's really nice. On the news front, Google Stadia met its inevitable demise.
Godspeed, you piece of shit.
The last thing from January wasn't necessarily a game, but rather the TV show adaptation of The Last of Us began airing this month. Now, since I still have yet to beat The Last of Us,
It'll happen one day. Maybe.
I haven't seen the show yet, but I'm definitely interested in doing so once I beat the game. if I ever do. With a couple of live presentations this month, we saw a few new releases, primarily for Nintendo, the most notable being Metroid Prime Remastered. Shadow drops immediately following the directs digitally, with a physical release coming later. I waited to pick it up physically. Yes, I didn't really have the time to play it yet, so I waited until 2 days before Tears of the Kingdom came out.
I really need to work on my time management skills, don't I?
I eventually did get around to it, putting in a few hours, and Metroid Prime is simply fantastic. This was my first time playing it, or really any Metroid game for that matter. I've dabbled in most of them, but this was the first one I truly got engrossed in, and my god, what a game. The gameplay is sublime. I'm usually not the biggest fan of first-person shooters on consoles, but the auto-aim here made it so much fun. And just exploring these environments on Talon 4, discovering the world's history, finding all these alien species, and of course, it's got that addictive Metroidvania gameplay, but in 3D, which I was worried would feel pretty complicated, yet it feels really good. And despite this being a remaster, it really doesn't feel like it. The only times I remembered this was a GameCube game was when I actually thought about it, because the work put into this remaster makes it feel like it very much could have been a brand new 2023 release. And if this quality is what we can expect from Metroid Prime 4, count me on board. Now, I still have yet to beat it, but I'm very much looking forward to actually doing so. However, I do have one problem with this release, that being its price. $40 for a single GameCube game. What demented game do you think you're playing? Is this game a $40 experience? To me, yes. It's absolutely sublime, but also, this game is 20 years old. This should have been $25 at the most, but Nintendo thinks they can price it at $40 because people will buy it regardless because it's Metroid Prime. And they're right.
This was still a shameful purchase.
The other shadow drop following the direct was a Nintendo Switch Online update adding Game Boy, Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance games to Nintendo Switch Online, and this was without a doubt my favorite part of the show. I've been waiting for Game Boy Advance on Switch Online, and for it to finally make the jump alongside the rest of the Game Boy lineage was so great to see. Game Boy and Game Boy Color are grouped together in one app, available for all members, with Game Boy Advance being for expansion pack members only, which is odd. I mean, I get it, they need to add more value to the expansion pack, and I think Game Boy Advance works, but also, so many of its titles feel like Super Nintendo games, which is available in the base tier. Not only that, but its launch lineup was pretty lacking with only 6 games. And since it's an expansion pack app, the games are added at a snail's pace. Basically, either there's a Nintendo 64 edition or a Game Boy Advance edition every month, which is just frustrating. Like, this is the premium tier, but the base tiers get much more plentiful updates. But oh well, having the Minish Cap on Switch is worth it, I guess. The Game Boy and Game Boy Color app is way cooler. It's had more frequent additions with stuff like Kirby's Tilt and Tumble. Back then, you used to tilt the whole Game Boy to move Kirby, but now you just tip the Joy-Cons. And Link's Awakening DX, my favorite game of all time, thank you. Not only that, but the filters. You can change the color palette to replicate the original Game Boy's puke green, the pockets more washed out greens, or replicate the Game Boy games when they're being played in a Game Boy Color. I think it would have been really cool if they would have let you adjust the colors like you can when playing on a Color or Advance, but hey, this is already more effort than I expected from Nintendo, so I'm satisfied.
You know, he may have pissed everywhere, but at least he didn't shit everywhere too.
However, February's big release was Hogwarts Legacy, which launched for current-gen systems only this month.
And just like that, I am cancelled.
Yeah, talking about Hogwarts Legacy is pretty tricky because, you know, due to it being a Harry Potter game, there was a ton of controversy surrounding the game, and many people boycotting the game and unfortunately harassing those who simply played and reviewed the game. It's a really icky situation, but regardless of your stance, I respect it as long as it doesn't harm yourself or others. I haven't picked it up for myself as I'm not a big Harry Potter fan, and while it was definitely intriguing me upon its build-up to release, once it released and it appeared to be another mediocre open-world game set in the Harry Potter world, I lost interest. I may pick it up in the future, but I'm in no rush to do so. What else was there this month? Octopath Traveler 2? Yeah, I'm good. While I do like a handful of RPGs, from all the marketing, this does not seem like one of those. I mean, for crying out loud, this was the third HD 2D game released by Square Enix in a goddamn year, and the fourth game with this logo style. Which one of these is your favorite?
This is a tough one. Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe.
Well, hell yeah, another remaster from Nintendo, this time Kirby's Return to Dreamland from the Wii. Haven't played the original or this remaster, but I did play the demo and my god, I need to pick this one up. It's Kirby, so of course it's pretty solid. This game's gimmick seems to be these special abilities that are really overpowered, like this sword one. There's also a new epilogue and of course mini games. $60 for this is pretty iffy, but as someone who's never played the original, I'm definitely looking to pick this one up in the future. In terms of news, Super Nintendo World Open in America.
Really stretching the definition of news these days.
March was a simpler month, with its biggest title definitely being Resident Evil 4, the remake of the GameCube original that went fucking everywhere. Well, it's back, fully remade, and while I'm not a Resident Evil fan, I have dabbled in the original, and this remake seems good. I give the demo a whirl, and it definitely remakes the game. Definitely has a scarier atmosphere than the original, at least the opening. However, even though I'm not a fan of either of them, I do prefer the original. It's not that the remake is bad or necessarily worse than the original. In fact, I'd say it's objectively better, but I definitely find its crusty Wii visuals both scarier and more charming. I may sound like a fucking idiot because I've only dipped my toes into both of these, but like many other games, I'm in no rush to pick up the remake, as if I really want to play Resident Evil 4, I'll probably just stick to the Wii version. As for original titles, from Nintendo we got Bayonetta Origins, Cereza and the Lost Demon.
Thanks?
Yeah, not a Bayonetta fan. Much like Fire Emblem, I would like to give the games a chance, but that chance is not going to be via a prequel that plays differently than the main series. But the last big release this month, finally, after nearly a decade, one of the most critically acclaimed games finally came to PC. The Last of Us Part 1 made its way to PC. Yep, there it is on Steam. Wait, what is that doing there? Yeah, unfortunately, this port launched completely broken with so many bugs and glitches, which is super disappointing and something that's become more and more common with PC games. They launch in a seemingly incomplete state, which always hurts to see, but thankfully, as a non-PC user,
thank God! I mean, I may have had to sell my soul to Apple, but at least I don't have to pay $70 for the worst version of The Last of Us.
On the news front, the 3DS and Wii U eShops closed this month.
Godspeed, but I have not heard anyone talk about them ever since they closed down, so you guys didn't really care.
And E3 2023 was cancelled after both Microsoft and Nintendo confirmed they were not planning on participating. After E3 2021, they wanted to take 2022 off to put everything into E3 2023, but it seems Microsoft and Nintendo learned in 2022 that they don't need E3, and so with the two biggest participants out, it made sense to pull the plug for 2023. Overall, a very light month, with my main point of interest this month being Tetris, the movie. Now, when I first saw the trailer thumbnail, I thought this was a joke, some comedy sketch, but actually watching the trailer, it all clicked. This is a biopic about the licensing battle for Tetris that occurred in the late 80s. Nintendo was trying to get the license to release the console version of Tetris in the States so they could launch it with the Game Boy, but of course everyone else wanted a piece of that pie. It's a really interesting story, and I felt this film did a great job telling that story. Of course, this is a biopic, so there are various plot points that didn't actually happen and were just added for dramatic effect, which was the main criticism I saw for this film. But newsflash, all biopics do that, this is no different, and as a biopic about one of the most iconic games ever, I really enjoyed it. Seeing these legendary Nintendo figures depicted alongside world leaders like Gorbachev was truly something. Overall, I really enjoyed Tetris. I wouldn't call it an incredible piece of cinema, but as a video game fan, I found it to be a really enjoyable take on the rights battle for one of the most iconic games ever, and I would love to see more biopics on other events in the video game industry. Still waiting for that Gizmondo biopic.
If no one else makes it, I will.
April was a pretty packed month. Minecraft Legends, Honkai Star Rail, Disney Speedstorm to name a few, and even Dead Island 2 finally releasing after being announced almost 9 years prior in 2014. Finally, after all these years in development hell, it was released to reception. Pretty mixed overall, just brainless fun but creatively lacking. However, April finally saw the release of Star Wars Jedi Survivor. Hey, only a 3-year wait from the first? That's pretty commendable. And I quite like Jedi Fallen Order, and from Survivor, I wanted more of Jedi Fallen Order, both in terms of gameplay and story, and I only got half of that. So, gameplay wise, I really enjoyed Jedi Survivor. Like Fallen Order, it's a Metroidvania set in the Star Wars galaxy, so of course I love it. And while Jedi Survivor feels similar to Fallen Order in many ways, that's not a bad thing. Exploring these areas with all the force abilities you have from Fallen Order is a blast. When you get to a part where it's just parkour segment after parkour segment, it's so goddamn fun. Great new additions like the grapple hook also really help with traversal, and exploring is just a blast. I was a bit disappointed by how few planets there were, as it really just feels like you go between a few, but each planet is distinct enough, so it's fine. The combat though, oh man, the parrying system, man, it just may be my favorite in any game. It's so satisfying to parry then immediately counter. Customization is also incredible. All the the outfits, hairstyles, beard styles, there's a lot of customization to Cal, which scratches more of that itch I have for a true open world non-linear Star Wars game. So I really love the gameplay, but the story?
If I say I like it, can I move on?
The story was the weakest part for me. I don't want to get too spoilery, but the main chunk of the story just feels so pointless. You pretty much have the same goal as your enemy, and so much of the game, you're just chasing him down to here, and here, and here, and then once you defeat him, out of nowhere, the game introduces a new antagonist, and man, that just pissed me off. I fucking hate it when a story is prolonged after a point where it feels like it could have wrapped up, and while I appreciate the twist villain for adding a bit more and giving the game a better conclusion, it still feels unnecessary and just a way for the writers to add drama, which the story was really lacking. I really love the character work here though. Cal having to struggle with the lurch to the dark side as he grows feelings for Marin. Everyone feels like they really have grown after Fallen Order in the way I expected them to. And I really hope this isn't the last time we see them, because I love these characters, but the story they're in, I just didn't like. But overall, I did enjoy Survivor because at the end of the day, it's a video game, and the game part is the most important part, and I really enjoyed it here. However, the story, it doesn't feel like a story that the writers actually wanted to tell in the Star Wars galaxy like Fallen Order's story. It feels like a story they told because Fallen Order was a success and so they needed to make a sequel.
Overall, 8 out of 10, can't wait for the sequel.
Advance Wars 1+2 Reboot Camp released, wait, what? Advance Wars 1+2 finally released? After being delayed from a December 2021 release to a spring 2022 release, it was delayed more due to world issues before finally releasing this month, and as I expected, I heard nothing about it. I get and respect why Nintendo delayed it from its spring release, but that also pretty much killed its chance of doing well. I mean, a few weeks later, a new Zelda was coming out. If they released it in March, maybe it probably would have done better, although no matter what, due to all of this, I don't think anyone should be holding their breath for more Advance Wars content, unfortunately. But as a Nintendo fan, you may be wondering when I'm finally going to gush about this movie that was released this month.
Never! I have standards.
Super Mario Bros. The movie finally released this month, and man, was I absolutely disappointed by this movie. So hearing it was being made by Illumination and then seeing the voice cast revealed, like many others, I was in for a train wreck of a film. But when the first trailer released, it didn't look horrible. The rest of the trailers did though. All the following trailers were pretty bad, and after the last one, I decided I was in no rush to see the film, but after a few weeks, I went and saw it and was blown away by all of the little details. All of the references were so fun to spot. The cinematic remakes of the music, the absolutely stunning animation, there was clearly so much effort that went into those aspects. And none of the story. The story and pacing absolutely killed this movie for me. The one thing I like about this story is that Peach is actually a leader. She doesn't just get kidnapped and not appear until the end. No, she's doing what a leader does and tries to stop Bowser, which was an awesome take on her character. And that's it. So much of the story just felt unnecessary. Like it feels like you could cut out the whole second act and lose pretty much nothing story-wise. And the pacing, it never found that sweet spot. I was either screaming get a move on or slow down. It's so obvious that this movie was made by Illumination because of all the stupid fucking slow-mo scenes, terrible pacing, and the logo at the beginning of the movie. I never really had much faith in the movie cause it's a Mario movie. The plot of Mario consists of Bowser kidnaps Peach, save her. What makes Mario enjoyable is the gameplay, the worlds you explore, the challenges you conquer. Mario is about the gameplay, not the story. So to me, Mario just doesn't work in a film. And if you're gonna do a Mario movie, I'd prefer if you get zany and stupid with it. Like that 90s Mario movie is pretty terrible, but I'd much rather watch that over this cesspool of garbage. Have all the musical references you want, but maybe also make a good movie. I may sound really critical of this, and I am. This was the second highest grossing film of 2023 and has set Illumination up for the next goddamn decade. Like damn, having Across the Spider-Verse come out 2 months later was like the biggest case of whiplash. I forgot animated kids films could be good.
Yeah, f Mario in with Spider-Man. Not literally.
May saw the release of what was my and many others' game of the year. Oh yeah, there was a Zelda game too. After 6 years, finally, The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom released, and it's good.
What a shocker.
I've already talked about Tears of the Kingdom, but when I did, I still had that hype blindness. But now that it's died down, this game is still incredible, nothing's changed. Tears of the Kingdom was my most anticipated game ever when it was released, and it did not disappoint. Which is interesting looking back, because it's not a ginormous step up from Breath of the Wild, but it still was what I wanted and what I expected. I definitely agree it has flaws, reusing so much, some of the issues with Breath of the Wild are still pretty prevalent, it took 6 years to come out, but who am I kidding, I absolutely adore this game. Tears of the Kingdom just hit it right for me. There's so much to it, it's a game I can come back to for years and still have stuff to do. Whether it's side quests or core hunting or exploring Hyrule more, I can pop in this game and just have fun. And that's large in part due to the new abilities which completely triumphs Breath of the Wild in my opinion. They're so fun to use and seem complicated on paper, but they're made so simple and fun to use in practice. It's weird having so much love for a game that feels so similar to its predecessor, but every time I think of Tears of the Kingdom, I'm reminded just how much I love it and will remain for years as one of my favorite games. I hope it will be the last Zelda game in the world of Breath of the Wild and the last non-linear 3D Zelda for a while. I'm definitely down for some more Ocarina of Time style adventures for the next game, but that's mainly because I feel like both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom will keep me satisfied with this kind of Zelda for a while. And so I'm just not a fan of this style, but to act like this is a bad game just because it doesn't seem to be the biggest step up from Breath of the Wild, yeah, it's a bit much. This year's big sequels, Spider-Man 2, Jedi Survivor, and Tears feel similar in the sense that they may seem similar to the original games from a distance, and in many ways they are, but once you get your hands on it and dive into the games, you can truly tell and appreciate how it stands apart.
Can I get bitchy yet?
Of course, Tears of the Kingdom has flaws, but I don't really mind a ton of them. But I am annoyed by some things Nintendo is doing with it. It's been confirmed for a while that there's no plans for DLC, which is a little disappointing but respectable enough. They say it's because they've done everything they can in this world, which isn't true but okay. But even some little things are missing, like a Master Quest. I want to replay this game, but I would prefer doing so in a Master Quest, but it doesn't feel like Nintendo has supported the game much since launch. I mean, this was their first $70 release, and I feel like they'd support it more than just patches. In just 4 months, it sold 2/3 as many copies as Breath of the Wild has in 6 years across 2 platforms. This game was without a doubt Nintendo's best performing game in 2023, and yet it feels kinda neglected. And I know it may sound really bitchy, but I told you that's what I was going to do. Listen, I can respect that you're done and ready to move on to the next Zelda game, but can't you just do a little Master Mode first?
I'm just so passionate to have my ass handed to me.
That's all I could really muster up in what I don't like about Tears of the Kingdom, because I adore this game. I was not disappointed by it at all. I really enjoyed it, and I'm excited to close this chapter on this era of Zelda and hop into a new era full of dog shit. Yes, May's other big releases, Redfall and The Lord of the Rings Gollum.
Okay, which should we talk about first?
Hogwarts Legacy and last-gen systems.
What the f***?
Hogwarts Legacy made its way to last-gen systems this month, which was nice to see. I'm glad the companies are finally putting their foot down on last-gen versions. Either they don't do them at all, or they release after the current-gen versions. Because at this point, the PS5 and series consoles have been out for a few years. They're no longer hard to find. You can go to a GameStop or Walmart and more than likely find one. Jedi Survivor very much could have run on PS4, but I'm glad they kept it current-gen exclusive because it's time to move on. And I also support releasing the current-gen versions first and releasing the last-gen versions later if you're gonna do a last-gen version at all.
Well, that was nice being able to avoid talking about a shitty game by talking about a last-gen port of a shitty game.
Okay, let's get this over with. Redfall was Bethesda's latest disappointment, an online first-person shooter about vampires developed by Arcane Studios.
I've never heard a more disgusting sentence in my life.
Redfall ended up being pretty gross. I can't say much because it was an Xbox exclusive, and I'm too busy with my Astro's Playroom machine to care, but just look at the gameplay. It looks so sloppy and unfun. Man, I'm disappointed by this, and I can't even play it. And the Lord of the Rings Gollum? Oh boy. So I actually played the demo of this, and it was okay. From what I experienced, it wasn't as bad as many made it out to be, but that doesn't mean it's good. I just didn't play much because, why would I? It was extremely boring. I mean, how did this pass the concept stage? A Lord of the Rings game? No duh, but having it be about Gollum, one of the weakest and most pathetic characters in the series? I like Gollum as a character, but he's not the kind of character that I want to play as in a game. The gameplay was just so repetitive, just jumping around and climbing walls in this dark, dingy cave. I didn't make it far enough to say this game is atrocious, but it's not good and absolutely failed to hook me. And that's pretty much it for May. It was a pretty light month, definitely because there was a new Zelda game, as June was pretty packed. Oh my gosh, June was a packed month. Street Fighter 6, Diablo 4, and Final Fantasy 16 were definitely the biggest titles. I played the Street Fighter 6 demo and I had a blast. I suck at fighting games, but I really like 6's style. Crank the difficulty down low and let me beat the shit out of my opponent and you have a happy Nicus. However, there's also World Tour, which is the story mode here. You can create your own character, and this is one of the most fun character creators I've ever used. You control so much, you can warp so many different parts of the body to make an abomination to mankind, and then fight as that guy. I had a blast making my character and then fighting as him, and the mode itself, you have various missions, however, it's also an open city where you can go around and fight random pedestrians. It's so silly and fun, I really want to pick this game up. I'm definitely fine waiting for a sale or price drop to pick it up, but it's also definitely on my list. I also played the Final Fantasy 16 demo demo and it was fine. I didn't make it that far because, I don't know, it didn't necessarily grab me, but I'm down to give it another go in the future. And Diablo 4, it just doesn't seem like my thing. I passed on it. Those were the major releases, but there were also a bunch of other solid releases. Dave the Diver had my eye, I tried out the demo.
What else would I do? Buy the full game?
And it was pretty fun. Swimming around, catching fish, all with a gorgeous art style and fantastic presentation. Yet another future pickup for me. And there was a bunch of remakes and remasters released this month too. We Love Katamari Reroll plus Royal Reverie, Ghost Trick Phantom Detective, Front Mission 1, Sonic Origins Plus.
Damn it!
I'm not the biggest Sonic fan, but I do quite enjoy the Genesis titles. So when I saw Sonic Origins Plus, guess what I did? This is the deluxe version of Sonic Origins, which was released in the summer of 2022 to disappointment. There was a bunch of little issues from its pricing to how the games were presented, but I think Sonic Origins Plus does help with that. The physical release comes with this really nice art book showing a bunch of concept art, the game's covers in each region, and other pieces of art. And you also get a code that adds 12 Game Gear games and Amy as a playable character, and that's what makes this Plus.
Thank you?
Yeah, this is Sonic Origins, but with Amy, and a bunch of Game Gear games. Okay, the Game Gear games are novel and cool to dick around with, but they do not add value. I mean, this, I'd pay to not play it. And Amy as a playable character? That's cool, but she should have been from the beginning. Overall, I do like this release. It's nice having these games on Switch, but I wish it had more actual Sonic games, not Game Gear fodder. Well, with it being the month of E3, there was Summer Games Fest and Nintendo held their own direct announcing a bunch of titles. A Princess Peach game and Luigi's Mansion 2 HD for 2024, but for 2023 releases, a remake of Mario RPG, WarioWare Move It, a new 2D Mario, and remasters of Pikmin 1+2, Shadow drops following the directs just like Metroid Prime Remastered, and like Metroid Prime Remastered, I waited for its physical release to pick it up. But it's technically a June release, so let's talk about it now. So it's $50 for both games, but they can be bought separately for $30 each, and I respect that pricing structure. I'm just glad they brought over both of them to get the entire Pikmin series on Switch in time for Pikmin 4. So yes, you can play the entire Pikmin series on Switch.
Okay, let me correct that. Only the bad Pikmin games can be played on Switch.
I played both Pikmin 1 and 2, and this is my first time playing a Pikmin game, but I fell in love with it. I was definitely intimidated by Pikmin, but Pikmin, it's hard to explain, but once you know how to Pikmin, it just becomes second nature. And from there, you're just blasting through a really fun game. This remaster didn't get as much attention as Metroid Prime, but it's still a nice remaster. It's not the best looker, but it plays really well, and overall, I really enjoyed it, and I'm really glad we have these games both on Switch. Your day will come, hey Pikmin.
Outside of that though, there was no other big June release, especially for Nintendo. I mean, why would they release another game in between their two biggest games of the year? How the hell did that get there?
Everybody wants to Switch.
We actually call it bad game around these parts.
This game is a piece of junk. I've already gone in depth on it, and it's not good. It's a really slow and unfun party game with just a few okay minigames. The rest just suck and are unfun. It's just a slog to go through, but still hilarious. This game was announced on June 1st and released on June 30th. Nintendo rushed this out in the window between Tears of the Kingdom and Pikmin 4 because they knew this game was ass. Playtesters didn't like it, insiders worried it would ruin Nintendo's reputation, and if it was released in 2022, I would have been pissed. But for it to release right smack dab in between two big titles for $30, it's more funny than anything.
I love owning a game I despise.
Oh my gosh, you thought May was barren? Look at July. The big title this month was of course Pikmin 4, finally releasing 10 years after the prior title. I haven't played much of this game, I'm about 4 hours in or so, but I've loved what I've played so far. It's structurally closer to Pikmin 2 with caves and no time limit, and I really enjoy both aspects. I don't really prefer one style of Pikmin over the other, I love both, however, I think I do like the cave style a bit more. You create your own character, which is a ton of fun, and you also work alongside Ochi, one of Nintendo's greatest creations of all time. Your goal is to save all of these, other guys, Olimar's race, I have no idea what they're called. This is a great game, but it makes a lame first impression. After the first bit of gameplay where you explore this house, this Olimar, it cuts to you landing on this planet in search of other Rescue Corps members as you go through this tutorial area, but my god, this was obnoxious. You stop every 10 seconds for the character to spell out something obvious. It's a really slow start when it doesn't need to be. This is clearly meant to be for newcomers, and this definitely was many people's first Pikmin game because Well, it's the first new Pikmin game on a console that sold over 21 million units. But I enjoyed Pikmin 1 as a starting point so much more. Going in, you're just like Olimar, knowing nothing about the Pikmin but slowly learning all about them. Here, it's spelled out for you, and while it doesn't affect someone like me, new players aren't going to have the same sense of discovery. However, once you get past the opening and it just becomes another Pikmin game, oh my gosh.
It's a new Pikmin game!
It looks and runs beautifully, it's just so fun. The low camera angle really helps sell how small you are, on top of the fact that you're interacting with man-made objects. Seeing how a Game Boy Advance SP is giant compared to these guys really helps sell how small these guys actually are. It's really neat. Overall, while it hasn't been as much time as I've wanted it to be, I've really enjoyed Pikmin 4 so far. It's really damn good, and I'm excited to play more of it. The other July release of note? There was no other July release of note. However, when it was announced that a game called Red Dead Redemption was rated, the rumors went crazy. Many people got excited for a full-on remake of Red Dead 1 with more references to 2 and 2-level visuals, but me personally, I'd have been fine with just a straight port to modern platforms.
Well, whatever it ends up being, I'm sure it will not disappoint.
On the morning of August 7th, I saw a YouTube notification from Nintendo that said Red Dead Redemption, and I was blown away. Yes, Red Dead Redemption received a port to not just Switch, but PlayStation 4 as well. It was a straight port, but man, I did not care. Now what did the rest of the internet think?
What the heck is that?
This sucks.
This sucks.
Many were disappointed that this was just a port and not a remake, but why did you automatically think it would be a remake? It's like a dog who sees their owner putting their shoes on and thinks they're gonna go for a walk just for their owner to leave without them. Buddy, you're disappointed because the thing you made up didn't happen. You look like an idiot. The expectation that Rockstar would remaster Red Dead 1 in 2023 when they're knee-deep in development of GTA 6, talk about double standards. To which you may say, they can outsource it. Yeah, that went great last time. I'm happy with this port because this preserves the game, brings it to modern platforms, and makes it portable for the first time ever. Now, $50 is a bit pricey, I will admit, but they released Metroid Prime Remastered for $40 earlier this year. $50 for Red Dead doesn't faze me. Some said just buy a 360 or PS3 and play it there. Just buy this port and suck it up. Well, I was ecstatic. It launched digitally in August with a physical release later, but I didn't care. I ate it up in August and I loved it. This release actually got me to finally complete Red Dead 2. I did so right before this came out, so I dived into this right after playing 2 and was reminded how much more I prefer 1. Everything is perfect to me. The story, the world, the characters, the gameplay. Red Dead 1 feels so alive for a 2010 game. The way you'll just see life casually hopping around as you ride across the prairies, going to the back of the saloon and playing poker with the general store owner. This game feels impressively alive, and of course, this was just a flawless port. I really enjoyed revisiting this title, and it won't be long until I revisit it again. But Red Dead wasn't the only notable release this month. Oh no. August was a pretty big month, and one of the Game of the Year nominees launched during it too.
Well, no shit, I just talked about it.
Baldur's Gate 3 launched and became a hit out of nowhere. I mean, Baldur's Gate 2 came out in 2000. Where the hell did such a passionate fanbase come from? Well, I did what I do best and gave the demo some time. 15 minutes, to which Baldur's Gate 3 fans will say,
No, you need to spin longer before you form an opinion of it!
to which I say,
Damn, this game is pretty good!
from the very little I played, Baldur's Gate 3 is an excellent game and one I'm definitely down to spend more time in, but it needs to not be $70, have a physical release, and I need to have 100 hours that I can sink into it. It's an isometric turn-based medieval RPG, which is a combination of my least favorite types of games, and yet I enjoyed what I played here. The battles were actually pretty fun. There's a set distance you can move, so you can attack an enemy then move away from them, or if you kill one and can still move, you can move towards your next enemy. It adds another layer of strategy that makes the turn-based combat more fun, and while it doesn't entirely seem my thing, I'm absolutely down to play this one more, just not for that price. Sea of Stars and Arbor Core 6 released this month, and so did Madden 24. Just one more year till Madden 13. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre also released this month, and it's a lot like Friday the 13th the game, but Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And Vampire Survivor made its way to Switch this month. Now, what's that, you ask?
A mobile game.
But I thought you hated when those came to Switch.
This is an exception!
Vampire Survivors is awesome. It's a pretty mobile-gamey mobile game, but I feel like it works really well on console. Not only that, but its style. It gives me major Castlevania vibes, and yes, that's all I need in my life.
I'm a very easy man to please.
September was another pretty beefy month, and it could have been the month that I got myself an Xbox Series S. If only Starfield looked better. Man, I was excited for Starfield earlier in the year because it did seem exciting. But as the release date got closer and closer, it really started to seem like a typical first-person Bethesda RPG, and that's what it ended up being. Starfield wasn't necessarily terrible, it was just not that good, much like Bethesda's other first-person open-world RPGs. But I can still enjoy some of them. I love New Vegas and Oblivion, but not necessarily because they're great games, they're just fun ones. But Starfield just didn't look fun. It's pretty similar to Fallout, but in space. But that ended up being pretty lame. The planets were pretty barren and boring, besides a few points of interest. Sure, it's the same for No Man's Sky, but at least the planets there look more alive and fun to explore. But Starfield just looks so dull and depressing. It doesn't make me want to explore the cosmos, it makes me want to play a different game. And for those who played it, they weren't big fans either. I mean, modders gave up making a multiplayer mod for the game because they found it to be too boring. Talk around the game died down fast, and it's gone down as another Bethesda RPG that Todd Howard talks up as if it's the next evolution of gaming, to which many eat it up and say the same thing, then the game releases and it passes like a fleeting shadow. And seeing this from a distance disappoints me. Thankfully, it saved me from getting a Series S.
Like, I dodged a bullet right there. What are the other Xbox exclusives? Looks like I'm buying a Sega Genesis!
But I was excited for Xbox to finally have a big exclusive, because again, it was making me want to get a Series S, but just wasn't it, unfortunately, and makes me worried for the Elder Scrolls 6, which will probably be their next title. Overall, 8 out of 10 production, 0 out of 10 game. Faith Farm released this month. I just recognize its name because of its appearance in too many Nintendo Directs. Super Bomberman R2 was, well, cool to see, but the other big title this month was Mortal Kombat 1. Not Mortal Kombat 1 as in the first one ever, it's the newest Mortal Kombat game called Mortal Kombat 1. I get it, the name Mortal Kombat 12 isn't appealing, but just come up with a damn subtitle. I guarantee it sounds a lot more appealing than 1. Anyways, as I do, I gave the demo some time and it was good. I definitely like Street Fighter 6 more, but I may still pick this one up in the future, if I don't suck at fighting games then. The fighting mechanics are cool. I just found Street Fighter more stylistically appealing, but that shouldn't take away from the fact that this is still a great new Mortal Kombat game and a good current gen exclusive. You gotta include the Switch and current gen. Yeah, for some reason they decided they should bring Mortal Kombat 1 to Switch. Why? And they did it natively, which I would usually commend. I hate cloud games, and cloud games would especially not work for fighting games. You need your button presses to be read quickly. A delay can really harm your performance.
But they shouldn't have brought it to Switch in the first place.
Why did they do this? No Switch owner who's also a Mortal Kombat fan is going to go, thank God I can play Mortal Kombat 1 on my Switch. If they don't have a PS5 or Series console, they can upgrade to an S for like $200. And even if you can't, just don't spend $70 on Switch. I get and commend why they didn't bring this game to last-gen systems, but considering how underpowered the Switch is in comparison to the Series consoles and PS5, these current-gen multiplats need to stay off of it. And it's not that I don't like the Switch or that I don't want it to have third-party games, it's just that this quality is unacceptable, especially for $70. Because the Switch has had plenty of excellent experiences for it that can run better and are way cheaper. Free counts. Yes, announced and released on the same day in a Nintendo Direct this month, F-Zero 99, another 99-player battle royale game for Nintendo Switch Online players. And man, F-Zero 99 is a blast, until it wasn't. I adore F-Zero 99, it was so exciting to see and was a ton of fun, but it got old quick. Sure, it's because of that damn track selection. You can vote between 2 tracks for each race, but it's usually either Mute City or Big Blue. And these are good courses, but they feel like the only courses I play on when I play a single rounds. The Grand Prix have you play more courses and they're a lot more fun, but they only happen in half-hour intervals. F-Zero 99 is still a really fun time, but again, Nintendo has failed to strike the gold that Tetris 99 did. Tetris 99 still remains popular to this day because it's Tetris, it's infinitely replayable and addictive. And F-Zero is a blast too, and I think it works well enough as a 99-player battle royale, but now these days, not many people are playing it. Half of the lobby just ends up being bots now, which is just so lame. And as much as I hate to admit it, I can very much see F-Zero 99 getting the Pac-Man 99 treatment in a few years, which means to be shut down because nobody cares anymore. But I hope the popularity of this game at launch at least inspires Nintendo to give F-Zero an actual chance. Overall, this Direct was fine, but really made it apparent that the Switch is on its way out. Any new announcements for Nintendo were just remakes or remasters, exciting ones at that, but Nintendo's 2024 lineup at that point seemed pretty barren, with the only original title being Princess Peach Showtime, and with the Switch being almost 7 years old, this Direct really made it feel like it was almost time to move on.
Pikmin 1 plus 2 released physically this month.
Yes, Pikmin 1 plus 2 received its physical release. I like this cover, I get it, it's meant to replicate the Japanese covers, but I like the old covers so much more. This format does fit a bit more with Pikmin 3 and 4 covers, but you could have made new designs, that would have been neat. Speaking of neat, since these games were sold separately digitally, when you pop in the cartridge, 2 icons show up.
It takes very little to impress me.
Now, it may be hard to believe me because when I've said it's been a beefy month, I talk about like 2 games, but October was actually beefy. There were 2 games on the same day. Yes, on October 20th, Spider-Man 2 and Super Mario Bros. Wonder for their respective consoles.
Guess which one I played first.
Super Mario Bros. Wonder is incredible. I wasn't expecting to like it as much as I did, but my god. The core gameplay is of course excellent. It's 2D Mario fun, but it feels more like a 3D Mario game. One of the collectathons, as each major level has at least 2 Wonder scenes. One from completing the level, and the other from finding and activating the Wonder Flower and completing its respective scenario. And these Wonder Flower segments were insane. It can make the pipes crawl around, make piranha plants sing, have a horde of bulls charge at you, make a bunch of bouncy hippos bounce around, and the best part is, these are just some of the effects from World 1 alone. This game was filled to the brim with crazy effects. Going in, I was worried there would only be 10 or 15 unique effects copy and pasted, but no, at most an effect is used twice, maybe even 3 times. But there's still so many unique effects, it just oozes creativity. The dev team had so many crazy ideas and they did not hold back. And it makes for such a fun game with so much variety. All the world themes are thematically similar to the typical Mario World themes, but the way they're presented and handled makes them truly feel different. And on top of the wonder effects, there's also the badges which give your character abilities like a parachute cap or a mid-air spin boost, but you can only have one of these at a time, so you have to choose wisely. And the character roster, oh my. Some don't like how all the characters besides Yoshi and Nabbit play the same, but I like it. It adds for a fair base playing system and it makes the badge system work a lot better. I'm not showing much of Wonder because it truly is a game that needs to be experienced. It's not this groundbreaking genre-defining experience, but it's an excellent 2D Mario after an 11-year hiatus. And I also really like how it truly stands on its own. It doesn't replace the New Super Mario Bros. Games or any other 2D Mario for that matter. Unlike New Super U, there isn't much of a reason to play Wii more than U and vice versa. Overall, Wonder exceeded my expectations, and if it wasn't for Tears of the Kingdom, it would have undoubtedly been my favorite game of the year.
To which Spider-Man fans would have said,
Oh, Mario Wonder's your game of the year. Of course it was. You only play games for babies. I only play games like Spider-Man. It has Venom. Yeah.
Spider-Man 2. This game is good, but it did take a while for it to click to me. Gotta be honest, I wasn't a huge fan of the first 2 acts. Now the gameplay was great. It's another Jedi Survivor Tears of the Kingdom situation where it looks and plays pretty similarly to its predecessor, but there's so much more to it. But man, the story was not doing it for me. The biggest thing I wanted from Spider-Man 2 was more Miles. He's still a brand new Spider-Man, and because of that, there's a lot more growth we had to see with him. And since we skipped over Peter's origin in these games, I was definitely looking forward to see Miles' growth as a character in the sequel. Instead, he's constantly told to fuck off. So many times, Peter wouldn't allow Miles to help with certain missions. He'd tell Miles to go work on his college essay, and it was just infuriating.
Genki and I tracked the exhaust trails from their aircraft to the Williamsburg Bridge. I'll meet you there.
Hold on! Don't you have an essay to finish?
But as the story went on and Miles started to get more of the spotlight, I really came around to that choice and how he grows in the last third of the game alongside everything else.
damn, this is a good video game.
Of course, the big addition here is the symbiote suit, and it's really awesome. The special abilities it has are so overpowered, it's a blast. And the rest of the gameplay, the combat is a bit improved. There's various new moves, but some old moves are lost as well, but overall, it's hard to talk about how the combat has changed when you can talk about how the traversal has changed. My gosh, man, the traversal here is incredible. You can gain such speed, and with the addition of the web wings, traversal is so much fun. Swinging at just the right angles, finding wind tunnels to glide in, diving into a loop-de-loop, then jumping out of it, shooting across the city. Spidey moves lightning fast in this one. Like, Spider-Man and Miles Morales felt perfectly fine, but going back to them, the swing feels sluggish. Of course, this was due to the PS4's power level, and now that we can harness the power of
Whatever the fuck you call that.
the traversal is so impressive and so fun. I mean, it was fun enough just hopping in PS4 and swinging around, but in here, it's incredible. And the MJ missions here are also so much better. There's still stealth sections, but she now has a blaster from Silver Sable, allowing her to actually take out enemies so they don't feel as slow as they did in PS4. Overall, while it took me a bit to fully get on board, with it now being said and done, I love Spider-Man 2. It met my expectations, has surpassed its predecessors, and I am very excited for the third and possibly final entry in this trilogy. Well, those were the 2 major releases on October 20th, but what else was there? Okay, I was excited for Sonic Superstars. I love some 2D Sonic, and the last one, Mania, was excellent. And so to see that there was a new 2D Sonic game that was more original than Mania, I was excited. and later let down 3 days before Wonder released. Okay, so this is a good game, but short and infuriating at points. The zone designs and themes are on point, it's a really fun game, but the bosses are so slow and dragged out, and if you die, time to replay the whole boss again. But it's a fine game that released at a horrible time. I think Wonder and Spider-Man 2 launching on the same day worked out well because these are such different games. This is an open world superhero game, this is a 2D platformer. This is a 2D platformer released days before the best 2D platformer of the year. Guess what happens? Yeah, it just got overshadowed, and at least for me, the same happened with Alan Wake 2. Releasing a week after the Spidey Mario combo, I heard nobody talk about Alan Wake 2 because they were still yakking it up about Wonder and Spider-Man. Alan Wake 2 was clearly good, I just haven't played the first, so I'm not really considering playing the second yet. And man, this game was so overshadowed. I mean, I heard about the damn King Kong game this month more than it. Oh wait, King Kong game?
That's dog shit!
Skull Island, Rise of Kong, and on paper, a King Kong game sounds like a good idea. So does communism, so that doesn't say much. This game ended up being a super low budget, unfinished piece of shit that somehow released for $40. How?
That's gaming in 2023 for ya!
Well, thankfully, that wasn't October's last big release.
I'm never gonna stop talking about this year, am I?
Assassin's Creed Mirage, the first new Assassin's Creed game in 3 years. It went back to the series' roots and was only $50. Now that's a good sign if I've ever seen one.
And I never have.
Yeah, this game was another Assassin's Creed. Not bad, not anything more though. And Detective Pikachu Returns. I made it loud and clear with every direct it's appeared in. Detective Pikachu Returns looked bad in like a 3DS game in HD. I didn't even notice it was released, and I'm glad I didn't because Nintendo will stop talking about it. I'm not opposed to a Pokemon mystery game, but make it actually look good, please. You have the goddamn budget. Well, those were the new titles, but there are also a handful of ports and re-releases. Red Dead Redemption received its physical release this month, and man, having this on Switch is so perfect with the red spine. Speaking of Switch, a pretty shocking port of Borderlands 3 made its way to the system, which was interesting. I get it, the rest of the Borderlands series is on Switch, and the Switch can run PS4 games, okay, but it's still pretty odd. And the Metal Gear Solid Master Collection Volume 1 also released this month, which I want to pick up, but the story of Metal Gear just intimidates me too much. And as if all these releases weren't enough, there was also a damn movie. Five Nights at Freddy's, obviously based off the hit indie horror games. It's about time this movie was released. I mean, this thing has been rumored for a long time, so for it to finally be out is cool to see, if only if it was good. So, this movie wasn't terrible, just kind of empty. I'm not a Five Nights at Freddy's fan, but I've had some interest in learning some of the lore, and I was hoping this movie could fill me in. This movie just made me watch random YouTube videos on it because it did nothing for me. I don't know, man. I wouldn't go as far to say it was bad, but I'm not saying anything more than that. And on an unrelated note, while I haven't been talking about it because for the most part it doesn't matter, I want to mention it here. Mario Party 3 made its way to Nintendo Switch Online a week after Mario Wonder. Why does that matter?
Because the following Friday, let's just say Intercourse was off the menu because I was busy.
November, what a cozy time of year. The small gap in between the Halloween and Christmas season, a great time for Wario to shine. WarioWare Move It kicked off the month on November 3rd, and this was the Wario game. WarioWare Move It is awesome. It goes crazy with the Joy-Con and their possibilities. It's a WarioWare game, so it's not the deepest thing, but it's a really fun game to blast through in a sitting. This game actually made use of the Joy-Con's IR camera. Look at that, I can flip myself off. Movie was another game that was kind of swept under the rug, but it's okay, I was there for it, and I still am. I don't know, man, I just really liked it. It's not a crazy game, but it's a fun game. And with Mario Party 3 releasing the week prior, Wonder 2 weeks prior, and the Mario RPG releasing in another 2 weeks, that made people question if there would be some form of Mario content the following week to have a unofficial month of Mario of sorts.
Even if Nintendo said Mario, that would count.
Well, it happened as the following week, the final wave of the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Booster Course Pass was released. Now, I haven't been talking about the waves up to this point because A, I haven't talked about 2022 waves, so to just talk about 2023 would be a bit awkward, and B, I'd much rather talk about all the courses together later on. But just for now, this was a solid way to end off the DLC. The final course being Wii Rainbow Road was predictable, but still perfect. Wii Daisy Circuit isn't my favorite, but they totally made up for it with DK Mountain from Double Dash. Overall, it was a solid send-off to some excellent DLC and helped carry us to the final piece of Mario content from this last month, Super Mario RPG, a remake of the SNES classic. Come on, guys. Much like Pikmin 1 Plus 2's cover, this cover replicates the Japanese cover, but man, the North American one was way cooler. Now, why am I whining about this? Because what else would I whine about with this remake? Super Mario RPG is one of the best remakes I've ever played. It took this classic SNES RPG and gave it the Link's Awakening treatment with gorgeous modern graphics and quality of life enhancements. This game feels like a modern game. So many times I'd reach a segment and think there was no way this was originally on Super Nintendo. Then I'd search it up and lo and behold, there it is. This is a super approachable RPG. RPG. It's not difficult, you don't have to grind, it has action commands. This isn't a giant game, but it's a short and sweet one, and one that I will definitely be revisiting quite often. This is my first time playing Mario RPG, and it's definitely one of my favorite RPGs now, and I'm so glad they did this excellent remake, and I'm excited to see what this leads to.
Like Minecraft?
Some Star Wars centric DLC released from Minecraft this month, Path of the Jedi, and with me being the Star Wars nut I am, I gave it a go, and it just didn't grab me. I like it conceptually, bringing you through the process of becoming a Jedi, but doing it in Minecraft is so goddamn unappealing, so I stopped playing after an hour or so. Well, thankfully, that wasn't the worst November had to offer, just look at Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3. Yes, this year's Call of Duty title, oh my god. Modern Warfare 3 was slammed, and rightfully so. This was supposed to just be DLC for Modern Warfare 2, but they made it a $70 release last minute, and thankfully nobody put up with it. I really hope this shows Activision that Call of Duty doesn't need to be a yearly franchise. Just release new maps every now and then and spend a couple years creating a new game with new mechanics and a big campaign while supporting the old game with some new content. With the failure of Modern Warfare 3, I think things will change, which is good. I don't want to hate this series, but it's hard to not criticize it when they do something stupid. Speaking of doing something stupid, Hogwarts Legacy made its way to Switch this month.
Oh my god, Warner Bros. Games, why?
Delayed from a July release, Hogwarts Legacy finally made it to Switch. It really shouldn't have. This is okay, but just why? Well, we have some big news this month. In fact, it carries over from October. People were getting antsy and thinking the trailer for Grand Theft Auto 6 was coming soon. In fact, it had to be in October because Grand Theft Auto Vice City released in October. Yeah, so did most other GTAs.
Well, this month Rockstar confirmed that come December, they would release a trailer. So, at this point, all we had to do was wait. Oh my god, just release the trailer!
Oh my god, it's finally December! On December 5th, we finally got the trailer for Grand Theft Auto 6, and it was good. The foundation laid here is exciting, the exaggerated take on Florida is gold, and overall, this is now my most anticipated game. I'm a big GTA fan, which is weird because I haven't really talked about the series much, but I digress.
Let a man be happy.
Well, it's hard to top this, but let's see what's released this month. Dragon Quest Monsters The Dark Prince launched as a Switch exclusive, and I've dabbled in it. It's a really charming and cozy game. Monster is a Pokemon-like spin-off where it's about collecting and battling with the monsters, and I love that here. Most of my playtime has come from the demo, but I do really want to play more, but for now, it seems good. Minus the performance. It looks a bit cheap, and performance-wise, frame rate hiccups are pretty common. Besides that though, a solid game I'm dying to give my time to. Batman Arkham Trilogy released this month, bringing yet another one of my favorite games, Arkham City, to Switch. As expected, Asylum and City run flawlessly. It's night that's a bit problematic, but I don't really mind it. This is more of a novelty than anything. When I finally decide to play Night, I'll play the PS4 version, but I do like having a portable version. The other notable title from December was Avatar, a video game adaptation of the highest grossing film of all time. It wasn't that great. It looks pretty lame, not surprised as it's Ubisoft. It's just hard to care.
Like, he is the scum of the earth, but my foot itches, and I think that bothers me more.
The final big talking point of the month, and year for that matter, was the Game Awards, which was big for a year like 2023. And the game of the year ended up being Baldur's Gate 3.
Of course, personally, I would have preferred for Tears of the Kingdom to win, but I'm not mad about Baldur's Gate 3 winning. I mean, it's an amazing game, and just because it won doesn't mean that Tears of the Kingdom isn't a great game, or Mario Wonder isn't a great game, or Spider-Man 2 isn't a great game, or Resident Evil 4 isn't a great game, or Alan Wake 2 isn't a great game. Someone fucking tell that to the internet!
My god, both Spider-Man 2 and Baldur's Gate 3 fans were insufferable following the show. Spider-Man fans were going, how did this game win? It's a turn-based RPG, while Baldur's Gate 3 fans were gloating and rubbing it in their faces. Both sides needed to calm down, it doesn't fucking matter. It's an award show meant to celebrate gaming, and it did celebrate Spider-Man 2. It was a Game of the Year nominee for crying out loud. It was just annoying seeing them attacking each other when our enemy was right there all along. What the hell was the show this year? So much of this was unacceptable. The time limit on the award winner speeches telling them to wrap it up after 30 seconds, that's unacceptable, especially when you let some of these other people talk about nothing for so long. Anthony Mackie talks about nothing for a minute. Hideo Kojima explains his new game for over 5 minutes and that's fine, but dear god, limit that. Cause to nudge these developers who poured so much into these games away after they won an award for their game, it's just pretty disrespectful. And some of these presenters, man. Timothée Chalamet presenting Game of the Year? Whose idea was that? Like, get the hell out of there. You probably have some new Willy Wonka movie you need to go promote.
Oh, would you look at that?
I think it could be an awesome tradition if they had the prior year's Game of the Year winner present the Game of the Year as a fun passing down of the torch. Make it feel more like a celebration of the industry instead of, oh, look at what celebrity we can get. Overall, this was a disappointing showing, and Jeff Keighley is not invited to my birthday party this year.
Okay, after almost an hour of yip yap yapping away, I can firmly say that 2023 was an excellent year for gaming.
So many great games released this year, and I had so much fun with so many of them. Excellent sequels we've been waiting for, original titles that came out of nowhere and blew us away, and some fantastic remasters that help preserve some of the most beloved games. 2023 will be a year that, for years, I will look back fondly on. It was just so fun with all these great games, and even the lame games. With there being so many good games, it just makes the bad games funnier.
And while 2024 has been very ho-hum so far, and definitely seems like it will continue to be, I don't really have an issue with that. And sure, PlayStation and Xbox don't really have anything going on, but with Nintendo, their next system is on the horizon. They've announced that they're going to announce it sometime within the next year. And we've had Mario vs. Donkey Kong, Princess Peach Showtime, Endless Ocean Luminous, which were definitely fun enough experiences to keep me satisfied for the year. It just goes to show how good gaming in 2023 was. It makes me never want to play a game again.